Okay, today we're talking with Irene Luce at the museum on the Nipigon Narrations project. And Irene's going to start by talking to us about some of the places on 1st Street and 2nd Street. Okay.
Then we start, I'll start right from the beginning, Glenna. And then we'll come as far as opposite the United Church. There was the Catholic Church, the Anglican Church, the Catholic Church, and the United Church. Right from across the street from the United Church would have been the old schoolhouse.
Okay.
The steps are still there.
I wondered what those steps were for.
Yes, that was the schoolhouse. Then you go up across the street from there would have been the Nipigon Inn.
Right.
And I don't know who owned the Nipigon Inn at that time. It could have been Mr. O'Neill, and it may have been his father-in-law that owned it. And right across from there would have been the post office.
Right.
I don't remember what year that was built, but they did build a post office. Then we go on, I don't remember the year that they built a post office, but anyway, it don't matter. Then we go right across the street from, next to the post office would have been the Hudson Bay.
Right.
Then we go into...
Okay, just go back a minute for the Hudson Bay. The Hudson Bay had the groceries and the furniture in those
they
days.
did.
Eh?
Yes, they did.
Yes.
And they did good business there.
Right. I just remember they had the groceries.
Yeah, and why I remember that, because my dad used to deal there all the time. He never dealt at Zechner's, and I don't know why. But anyway, that's beyond the point. And then we get into, on this side of Mr. Zechner's store would have been a gentleman by the name of Charlie Gerlach.
Right.
He had his... like his boats and whatever kind, but it was always with the small motorboat that he had there. Right. And the next door would have been Mr. Zechner. And he dealt in everything. He dealt in things for the bush people to work, their clothing. Then he would deal into groceries.
Right.
He would have great big boxes of cookies, which attracted a whole lot of people at that time because there was very few bakeries in town.
Okay.
And the cookies were always tasty.
Right, right.
So anyway, then we go on from there to the International Hotel.
Right.
Then we go on there from there to the Ovelio Hotel.
Right.
Then we go down the street. We turn right there.
Okay.
At the Ovelio.
And that's on
go
the 3rd
down
Street.
on
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
We go down. And then we go into a place that Mrs. Gentile owned. Okay. And B.A. had a building in that area.
Okay.
That's where their offices were. And then in the same place, it would have been... Bell Canada. They had their office there. And Mary Rose Harper, Trisella Framboise, Mrs. Dumont was the manager of their job. And beyond that would have been a little restaurant. And it would have been not a restaurant, but it would have been kind of like, I'm sure it would have been a rooming house at one time. Okay. But that was run by Pete Perrette.
Right.
At that time.
Okay.
And in the same building, they would have kind of a little restaurant that would have been run by Calababas.
Oh, I know that name.
Yeah,
right.
Calababas had that little restaurant in there. Served very good hamburgers and hot dogs. And that would have been about all that people at that time, I think that's about all I know we could afford anyway.
But you know there was always coffee there because
Oh,
it was the Finn people, right?
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Coffee.
It was nice.
Yeah.
Then we go up to, then we can turn right at the corner of no, down further would have been a taxi stand.
Oh.
That would have been run by the Red and Black Taxi. I don't know who it was that owned it, but I do know there was a taxi there. And there was 2 or 3 gentlemen that would operate the taxi driving. And then, across the street from there, we would go to the liquor store. But beyond that hotel, that little restaurant, our post office at one time was there.
Right.
And it was operated by Mr. and Mrs. Gordon. No, wait a minute. Who? Who would that have been?
But there was an elderly lady, I've seen pictures of her, who ran the post office there.
Yeah. Then after she left it, it would have been operated by a doctor's office.
Oh.
It would have been Dr. Byers
Okay.
that operated. Then across the street from there would have been the liquor store.
Okay.
They built a liquor store then. Next to the liquor store would have been the restaurant,
Okay.
the Roxy Cafe.
Okay.
Next to the Roxy Cafe, there would have been a little taxi. Another taxi stand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another taxi.
Yeah, and that would have run by a Willen. One of the Willen boys would have run that taxi. And then beyond that would have been Dresswell.
Right.
Beyond that, Ruby Dampier, she worked at Dresswell's.
Dresswell, right, for a long time.
Yeah, for quite a number of years she did after Dresswell himself gave it up.
Right.
So anyway, and we used to go there for coffee all the time and chat with Ruby. Yeah, she was a good kid. But anyway, then we went up to the corner, the corner of Charlie Sweshley's.
Right.
On this side of Charlie, he would have a little restaurant.
Oh,
That was a tea room where you could drop in for a cup of tea and a beautiful pastry and sit and chat for a few minutes. Then it went on to
was Jimmy Rings in Charlie's taxi still? Those early years,
that was early years.
Early years, right.
And then we get into his taxi stand. And he employed a number of guys there to run a cab because Ontario Hydro was running their line from Pine Portage through to Nipigon, which employed hundreds and hundreds of men.
Right.
And they were rough.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway...
But they spent money in Nipigon.
They sure did.
Yeah, they spent money
big time.
Right.
Big time.
Right. Which was important.
Oh, yes. Because they stayed here.
Right.
And but then going on into the next building would have been that store that was run by 2 brothers. One's name was Mark.
Mark and Dave Banning.
They
Banning
run
brothers.
the electric store.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know now if they dealt with appliances or just maybe odds and ends for hydro.
Right.
Right behind that store would have been the helper for Fred and Mary Vivon at the Liberty Cafe.
Okay.
Would have been his brother Art and his wife. And they would take turns in cooking for Art.
Oh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And at that time, I worked there at that time, but we won't go into that right now. And, but anyway, then beyond that would have been the drugstore.
Right.
And Mr. Thompson had steps outside built like in like this, eh? And there would be 3 steps to get into his little restaurant.
Right.
There was 3 Indian fellas. One was my grandfather. The other one was Mr. Martin, and I don't remember the other gentleman's name, but they would sit there. You know, Glenna, they would talk to everybody that walked by, and everybody enjoyed them.
Right.
3 old gentlemen. And my grandfather used to go up to get the newspaper for my grandmother. Well, by the time she got the newspaper, she needed more than the lamplight to keep it so she could read. But anyway, it was okay. Then next to the drugstore would have been a little restaurant run by Mikola's mother and dad.
Oh,
Yeah, and I worked there.
okay.
So anyway, it was a nice restaurant. Finn people run it, eh?
Right.
It was really a nice little place to work. And beyond that would have been another building. Let's backtrack a bit after the Liberty Cafe, because there was a little store in there that was run by Mrs. Swain and Mrs. Nuttall. Miss
Right.
Nuttall.
It was a dress shop, wasn't it?
Exactly.
I remember people
That
talking
was
about
the
that.
beautiful place to buy clothes because, hey, it was gorgeous. Then we're going to go up into the other beyond where we left off, and it was run by Hamo Mackey.
Right.
He had a man shop
Right.
in there, and then after he let it go, I'm sure Donnie, what had been Oya that got the income tax.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Jackie. Oh, yeah.
Jackie Oya,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
She run that for a while. I don't know how long, but anyway, she was there. Then beyond that little place where Mackey had was Acid. He come.
Okay.
Alan Acid
Yeah,
and
Al,
his
yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
Then his brother didn't stay here long. He moved into Geraldton. And he got his business going there, and Alan did very well here, I'm sure, in Nipigon. Then beyond that would have been another taxi stand. That would have been a little place on this side of Atwell's pool room.
Right.
And, you know, I often wondered what would be in that pool room. Nobody under 16 was allowed, and no girls allowed either.
Okay.
So anyway, that was fine. Beyond that would have been his sister, one of the Atwell girls, that would have a dewdrop in. That was the name of it, the dewdrop in. Then the next building would have been, there was buildings in behind, all these buildings
Right.
on the front street.
Right. Because Everett lived in the back.
Exactly,
Right? There was a
yes.
street back there.
Yes,
I just
yeah.
remember Everett's pictures.
Exactly,
in
yes.
that. Right.
And they all lived back there. And I think there was 2 or 3 families that lived back in the behind of these buildings in the front. Then, where do we go from there,
Must
Glenna?
be the plaza just about.
Pretty close, yeah. Now, where the Plaza theater is, there would have been a big restaurant there, run by Chinese guys, eh?
Okay.
Yeah, kind of a rough and ready place. But anyway, it was, yeah, and that he employed quite a number of women, And then beyond that, Glenna, they had to tear that down because they moved out of town, and the building was vacant. So the town I would imagine, took it over and sold it to the Plaza Theater. So they built a beautiful theater, and there was everything. It didn't matter what you wanted to eat in it, because my daughter at the time worked in the little restaurant with Pierre Pelche.
Right. Okay.
And beyond that, Plaza was, I can't remember, Glenna, what was there, but I know that there was a building, and I can't remember who owned it.
But then Mrs. LeBlanc owned the property.
Yeah, that's right.
There too.
Yeah,
eh?
yeah.
She
owned that right next to the
yeah. She
in
owned
between. Yeah, where the Roxy Cafe. No, let me think. Where the theater is. She owned all that.
Okay.
Mrs. LeBlanc.
Right.
And but beyond that, then they built another hotel. It was the Normandy.
Normandy. Right.
They built that.
Right.
In behind that would have been Mrs. Palmerville.
Right.
She had a rooming house.
Right.
And all Urban's people come up from the east to work on for hydro, and this is where those
they lived there.
Yeah, they stayed there because she did their laundry and looked after the kids quite nicely.
Right. Right.
Then beyond that building would have been a beautiful bakery. Gorgeous. And it was run by Lespies.
Right.
Beautiful people.
Right.
After they sold it to, I think it was Cookie Dampier's.
Liskey.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, they
Liskey's,
bought. I
right.
didn't remember. I couldn't remember the name,
Right,
but
Liskey's.
yeah, Lutzke's.
Yeah.
Yeah, they bought it. And they employed a number of good cooks from Nipigon, the Finnish cooks.
Right.
And it was, beyond that was a gentleman by the name of Mr. Hanula.
Right.
He used to cut men's hair.
Right. Right.
Then it turned into, I'm not sure if that's where Jeanne d'Arc was, like, until she retired.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And beyond that would have been a store.
Usila's.
Yes, but that was owned by some people. They were French people, and they, and they had pool room and everything in that building.
Okay.
And
anyway, we're going to run out of time for this portion.
Okay.
Because we run out, so
All
we'll
right.
stop right at the end of the street anyway.
Okay,
pretty well.
that's good.
That's good. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Good. So part 2 with Irene, we're going to kind of change topics, and I wanted to hear a little bit about the Mud Flats area. A lot of people are interested in hearing about that nowadays, and Irene has firsthand knowledge of that area.
Well, Glenna, I lived there for 21 years.
Ooh.
Until the day I got married.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
No lights, no water. My mother had a gas washer and a gas iron.
Wow.
Yeah. And that kind of helped us along. But it was the carrying of the water from the creek that run by our place, and it run by Dampier's, and mostly all the Dampier family lived to the right of us.
Okay.
But we got along like we were just one great big family.
So Irene, about how many houses would have been down there then when you were young?
There would have been at least three, oh, four, five. I would say there would have been about 10 to 12 houses
Wow.
in that area.
Okay.
There was a little old lady that lived on the foot of the on the back last of our road, and she had one leg, and she a beautiful sewer though, and she used to go to the store, and she had one cane that just had the thing under her arm, and she would hold herself steady.
Wow.
One day, we seen her coming home with her groceries, and my mom said to me, "Irene, you got to help her because she's having a hard time." So I did. I went out and helped her. And but a nice person. Her name was Mrs. Noonan.
Okay.
Her son went through to be an engineer on the CPR at that time.
Okay.
So then beyond that would have been Mrs. Bouchard. That was Slim,
Bouchard.
Tough.
Right.
Ernestine, and her brother. And there was a girl in there that I can't remember her name. But anyway, yeah, there was a young girl. And they passed away with tuberculosis.
Oh.
That was that. Yeah, it was bad at that time, Glenna.
Wow.
And coming into towards our street, well, it wasn't a street, but it was full of muds, and that's where it got the name Mudflats.
I wondered.
Yeah.
Okay.
And but it was okay. I that place has such a special place in my
guess
heart
so.
for me.
I just even think back to why did people go way down there to build houses when there was
The only thing is, Glenna, that we were promised to get hydro down there on one line, but it never did happen.
Oh.
But anyway, you see, it was only the Finn people and the Indians at that time that occupied Nipigon and the Mudflats.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
there, the people that lived down on the Mudflats was basically Indian people. My grandmother, grandfather, Buster, our family, and my mom and dad. My mama was a Cree Indian from Manitoba. My dad was an Ojibwe Indian from here.
Okay.
And but
the Dampiers were there because they fished.
oh, they sure did. Do you know something? Mr. Dampier occupied everybody in Nipigon with fresh fish.
Oh, wow.
In the fall, there would be buckets of whitefish that would be on his dock. And all you had to do is just take a bucket of your own and go down and take what you need.
Oh, my.
Great.
Right.
Great people.
Wow.
Wonderful.
But he must have sold his fish as well.
He sold it to a fish dealer from Thunder Bay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can remember one time him coming in, and he had a great big sturgeon. I can remember that just like looking at it today.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And he said, he was talking to his boys, this fish is worth more than $100. At that time, that was big money.
You're not kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did your dad work at?
My dad was a bushworker, Glenna.
Okay.
He guided tourists,
Right.
and he had wonderful people that he guided. And
Okay.
I've got pictures of them all at home. I took after my dad passed away. I took all his pictures, and I've got them at home.
So that's a long time ago to think that somebody was taking pictures
Yeah.
in those
Oh,
days.
yeah, it was Mr. Everett.
Oh, of course. Okay. Mr. Everett's pictures then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he had a store where the restaurant was.
Right.
I forget.
He
that.
just seemed to be around everywhere.
Oh,
taking
everywhere.
Pictures, eh? All the time.
At the school,
Yes.
took pictures there.
Right.
Of all lots of
but I don't
beautiful
see very
kids.
many pictures of the mud flats.
No.
And the houses.
No.
He didn't go down there. He seemed to be centered
You know,
up here.
there was a time that, he would come down. I can remember there was a ball field down where Barbara lives. And at that ball field, we used to go over. My mother would buy a basket of tomatoes and make us sandwiches. You could buy at that time pop that you had to mix up with, that kind of pop. Well, anyway, then she would mix it, and we would go over and watch the ball game. I remember Mr. Winfield, what's his name, Mrs. Burchard's oldest boy, Slim.
Right.
They were all young men at that time.
Yes.
Playing baseball.
Yes.
And us sitting on a blanket watching them. It was pastime for us at that time.
Right.
Yeah, it was nice.
Right. So if you lived at the mud flats, you had a fair distance to walk to school.
Did that every day, to and from. Never complained.
Right.
Now they need buses.
I know. But that was quite a walk when you think you're way down there.
Yep. We would run. We had a track leading from the school down. We would go in behind the drugstore, in after Mrs. That old lady that owned the post office.
Right.
Right on down home.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that's a fair distance to come up
and
there.
then getting back to my dad, he guided tourists. He worked for Don Clark in the bush. He was a cruiser.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he did, and and a scaler.
Right.
He would scale the.
So
the
he must
wood.
have learned hands-on then.
Well,
how to
you
do
know
that.
what? But when he graduated out of the school that they went to in Thunder Bay, my mother and dad, Glenna, was raised in that godforsaken school in Thunder Bay.
Okay. But at least he got his education.
He got it. Yeah, he did, and he went to grade. I think it was grade 11.
Okay.
That my dad went to.
Okay.
And he was a Glenna. He could talk to anybody in his in his Indian language.
Oh,
in his
okay.
English language, spoke
Okay.
beautiful English.
Of course, to me, I just remember his clothes.
Well, that's how he dressed, Glenna. Rough and ready.
But I know, but he wore those red plaid pants all the time.
Exactly. Yes.
All the time, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's pictures of him, I know,
Yeah, oh,
from Everett
yes.
had with his
Yeah.
red plaid pants
Yeah,
on.
he sure did.
Yes.
Yeah, but all the time had good jobs and
How would people get in contact with him for him to guide them?
I don't know. I suppose through the word of mouth.
Maybe. I just
Well, like
kind of
down
wondered.
here at the chalet, there was a gentleman that was working down there, and his name was I can't remember, Glenna.
Oh, so he would pass the information
Yes,
on.
yeah,
Your
down
dad would
to-
be
yes,
would
yeah.
be a guide.
Yeah, and
Okay.
he would have maybe 3 other fellows working with him.
Right? Okay.
You must have pictures, Glenna, of the time he
Well,
was.
I
he was
imagine there are
hunting.
some of Everett's there with
Hunting.
him. Yes. Yes.
When he would go out and if it was a miserable morning and blowing and snowing, he was guaranteed a moose. He would tell my mother, there's going to be moose today.
Oh,
Then
wow.
he would have his tours come up from Wisconsin, Chelton, Wisconsin. They would come every year.
Well, once they came and met him and guided, they would come back
Oh,
again.
yeah. Oh, year after
That's
year.
what people did in those
Yeah.
days, right? Yes.
And he made good. And but first of all, Glenna, we lived in a little house that only had 1 bedroom, and my mother had 7 kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then when she had the youngest one, if she didn't have a stroke, that put her in bed.
Oh my.
We had to have the doctor come down and attend to her. And his name was Dr. Raval. He used to bring down a little pail, a Burns pail, and never figured out what was in that Burns pail. But then he would put whatever it was I don't know. Found out later he had leeches in that, and that's what he would put on my mother's neck.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unreal, the medication them days.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
But it was good.
Right.
Yeah, and she stayed in bed, I would imagine, for, it must have been a month at least.
Okay.
And we had an Indian woman, her name was Vernick, Vernick's sister maybe, that would come up from the mission to help us with the housework and the cooking and whatnot.
Right. Oh, wow.
But anyway, then my mother kind of got along quite nicely. Pardon me. And did good. We did good. Then there was the money was coming in quite regular at that time. And she decided now she's got to fix up Grandma and Grandpa's house. So it was way bigger than ours.
Okay.
And only Buster lived with Grandma and Grandpa. And he was that was a good kid. So anyway, my dad fixed up the whole upstairs, downstairs, bedrooms, and we moved into there in 1943.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, beautiful. Wow. Walk into a beautiful home that's been really done up.
Right.
It was amazing, the feeling that it gave you.
Right.
You felt on top of the world.
So where did you fit in the realm of 7 children? Were you the oldest, the middle, the
No,
young?
I was the third.
Oh, you were
third
the third.
oldest.
Okay.
Yeah,
Third
yeah.
oldest.
My brother Joe, and my sister Doreen, and my mother had an older boy that was born out on the islands. Oh. My dad used to run mail from Nipigon out on the islands, and he had a team of about 7 or 8 dogs, and the baby was born in November. They couldn't bury him here, and he died before he was born.
Right.
So Elvin Dampier told me, Irene, I've got to take you out there and show you his grave. Oh. Because him and Maureen, oh dear.
Okay. Did you ever get out there?
No.
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 Okay.
No,
well,
I
that's
didn't.
Too bad. Yeah.
And but there they put a chain around the grave. If there was ever a time that I wanted to go,
right,
but it's never happened.
Right.
No.
But anyway, you were talking about your old brother Joe. Now that's Joe Gagne that lived where Joe's Hill was, right?
Oh, that was my Uncle Joe.
Oh, that's your Uncle Joe.
Oh, yes.
I just remember Joe's Hill, eh?
Yeah, he was an engineer on the railroad.
Yeah.
It was him who taught this young man how to, because he taught engineering in Montreal.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And he used to go by here, and every time we would make sure we met his train,
right,
because we would get a quarter.
I just remember Joe was a really nice fellow, and I just remember
friendly,
the kids all going to slide on Joe's Hill.
Joe's Hill.
Yeah. Oh, so that was your uncle.
God.
Then.
Yeah, my dad's brother.
Your dad's brother.
Yeah.
Okay.
Him and his wife.
Smiley.
Yes, yeah.
Smiles.
Yeah.
Smiles, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
nice
anyway, he did, and he was good to us. Very good. I know when my dad was if he was out of work and there was few groceries in the house and whatnot, there was always a basket come from Stryber from him. Yeah,
right.
Good people. Yeah.
That's good.
And anything else, Glenna? I don't know what we could talk about.
That's fine. You informed us lots of little things that went on here. Very good. Thanks, Irene.
Wow.